Have you ever wondered whatever happened to Leonardo da Vinci? Did he reincarnate? And what did he reincarnate as? Do we know him as maybe one of our famous artists that are living and working today? Have you ever wondered these things? Well, sometimes I do. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. Thanks so much for tuning into this video. This is a series of videos that I do on far out topics that cover everything from Sasquatch to ETs to soul contracts to ascension to you name it. Pretty much I can cover it, and I probably will cover it. So thanks for tuning in today. We're talking about, well, Leonardo da Vinci. For some reason, my spirit guides really wanted me to talk about him. I don't really know anything about him except for that he painted the Mona Lisa. And I think I remember from an exhibit I saw probably 20 years ago that he wrote upside down, or there was something about his writing that was very odd, very weird. Now, Leonardo da Vinci was truly a Renaissance man. He was able to sculpt, he was able to paint, he was consulted by leaders, country leaders that needed advice on military advice. So this guy was kind of the cat's meow, if you might say. How is Leonardo da Vinci doing today? It's been a minute since he was walking the earth. What has he done in his subsequent incarnations? What is he doing now? And this is where it gets very interesting, my friends. Pull up a chair, grab something nice to drink, and let's dive in. So when I go into Leonardo da Vinci's Akashic records, or his soul library, whatever you want to call it, it's basically the records of his incarnations and who his soul is and what he's up to. What are you up to, right? It's very interesting because the guides would also want to talk about confirmation bias. I told you you weren't going to know where this was going. You know, if you watch me, you know that we're going down a road and all of a sudden the guides are like, turn, turn, turn. And we're like, we just never know. Confirmation bias. Didn't even know the word before I just said it. So you would think that Leonardo da Vinci, the guy who did so many amazing things besides painting, he literally sculpted, he did amazing things of all different types. They call him an engineer. So that was, yes, back in the day when you could be an engineer, you could be a painter, you could be anything, because we didn't buttonhole people. We didn't say, you're going to be a doctor, and then you're going to be a family medicine doctor, a neurosurgeon, or an internal medicine. You're going to be a plumber. You're going to be an artist, right? Now we really buttonhole people, and we expect people to follow that, whatever that avocation is. Now, that's where confirmational bias comes in, because if you were looking at Da Vinci's incarnations that happened after that famous incarnation, you'd be very surprised, because what happens is you go back to the time between incarnations. That's when we're a soul energy, we're a soul light. Of course, we go back and we meet our loved ones and we meet our soul family and we have all that rigmarole. Yeah, we do all that. But then we start planning and scheming. We have almost like a team of our own kind of life architects. And these life architects, these energetic life architects, look at your soul map and they say, okay, yeah, your soul has these specific qualities. Now, this I find to be true. If you are a person who's typically incarnating in air signs, then air signs are going to be kind of predominant in your energy throughout your incarnations. You may not always be the max air sign, but air signs are going to be there. They're going to be in prominent placements. I don't know anything about astrology. This is what they're telling me. I would describe it differently. I would describe it like this. If I have a client that presents to me as someone who's very practical, pragmatic, maybe a little bit, trust but verify, kind of a little bit cynical, detail oriented, then I can tell you that their soul quality has those qualities. And I can tell you that if I did past life, look into their past life with them, that I would notice that they've had that quality throughout the majority of their lives. Okay, now this is where confirmational bias also rears its little yucky head, because What happens is if we incarnate with the same biases, and let's in this case call it the same qualities, we incarnate over and over again with the quality of pragmatism and practicalness. Well, guess what? We're sort of wearing a groove in that energy, are we not? Right? If you take the same path through the forest every day, pretty soon it's a path and there's no plants growing, there's no grass growing. And then theoretically, if thousands of lives, you would actually create a groove in that energetic path. Now, once you create a groove in an energetic path, your energy is likely to just follow the groove. I mean, it's the path of least resistance. So it's not going to jump out and run over there, right? It's going to be harder for you to do that. So that's how you end up incarnating with artistic abilities, or you incarnate with healer energy. Some of my clients, I'm like, my God, you've been a wizard, you've been a healer, you've been a witch, you've been an alchemist. You've been every single permutation of a healer that you could possibly be. Here's confirmational bias. In this life, they're an accountant, right? And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? Well, that's when your life planners, your energetic life planners go, yeah, you spent 20 lives being a healer. We're going to have to mix it up a little bit. And you're like, no, I love being a healer. I love it. I'm good at it. I feel so, like myself, and I feel really in the groove. Well, you're in a groove, honey. It's called a rut. This is a rut, honey. It was a groove, but now you've made a rut, and now we have to boost you out of it. So I'm going to go back to Da Vinci. I know this is surprising to me too, because I'm channeling this. So Da Vinci, he has this life where really he has kind of a golden spoon in his mouth. He's incredibly talented. He, and I peeked at his Wikipedia. I peeked at it, and he was born illegitimate, but he was raised as a legitimate kid of this guy that had some means, and this guy that had some means was like, this dude's a really good artist. All right, let's hook him up with an artist. Let's let him do his thing. So in the way he had a golden spoon was that he just seemed to find things to work out. It's just like throughout his life, he often had the one thing after another just work out. Y'all, that's when your groove turns into a rut, because you're really good at something, and then you continue lifetime after lifetime doing that thing. Then you get really good at it. And then you want to know what happens? There's no challenges. You're not being challenged. And if you're not challenged, guess what happens? You're not learning. And if you're not learning, then you're not doing it. Why are you here? Go to another planet where you're not even expected to learn anything, that you can just be a frog sitting in the water. Personal life of mine. I really enjoyed it. But anyway, if you're going to come here, you're going to get challenged. And you only get so many of those lives where it's just like, basically, you won the energetic lottery. So when Da Vinci reincarnated, now he worked with it's not like this is a tribunal and they say, you will, be an accountant or whatever, right? That's not really how it works. You have free will. You're up there. You're designing this next life along with your energy life architects. Okay. So everybody's got a voice in this. I would say that they're pretty good at, convincing you need to do something different, because if you come down here, and I mean, this is what they're showing me. If you come down here and you don't do something different, even though, they say, hey, we're your coaches, and we kind of getting a bad feeling about this gig you're doing, like you've done it a long time. We're getting this notion from the universe that if you don't change it up, they'll change it for you. So we would like to help you, right? This is often what I tell my clients, right? It's like, you can change this before the universe steps in and changes it for you. So, let's say Da Vinci came back and he's like, nope. I am the golden boy. I will be the golden boy. So he comes back and reincarnates in a very similar situation, because he was so sure that he had the chops. He was so sure that he could make it, that he didn't need to come back in a wealthy family, that he could come back once again. His next incarnation was once again one of like limited means. Let's just call it that, limited means. And yeah, he was talented because he chose to utilize those same soul gifts that he's been utilizing. He was very talented. But what ended up happening was his talent was usurped. So he ended up working for a patron. This patron was an artist. Okay. So this patron was an artist and he worked for this patron. I'm getting, he might have been reincarnated in the Cubist. Isn't there some kind of Cubist? It's sort of pre-Picasso. This is what they're showing me. I don't know. I think this particular incarnation could have been around pre-Picasso or in this Cubist. I don't know what they're talking about. But anyway, so he's working for this patron thinking this patron is going to notice, how good I am. I'm good. I'm really good. Well, yeah, the patron, the artist, and I'm not saying it's Picasso, the patron noticed how good he was and stole his work, basically put his own name on the work. Now, you wouldn't look at Da Vinci's work reincarnated as this guy, and I still think he was either French or Italian because I'm getting a P name, like a Pete Pedro, but not Pedro, but a P, Peter, like a French Italian version of that kind of name. And so this guy started stealing his work. And of course, Da Vinci, being Da Vinci, he was mercurial, I think, when he was Da Vinci. And I think he's mercurial in this life too. He could have a quick temper, or he could be changeable, mercurial, artistic. Well, he said, this isn't going to fly, basically. I don't want this to happen. And I'm going to expose you. I'm going to expose you. And he took I see him taking all his drawings, all his studies. And he took them and he went out the door. He went out the door of the studio. And he started telling people, this is my work, right? This is my work. This isn't his work. It's my work. Well, guess what? They vilified him as stealing, as being sour grapes draftsman. That called him a draftsman. And they vilified him as stealing his patron's art. And he was expelled from that artisan community. Now, okay, that happened. Okay, you're going to get out of your rut. You guys, if you're not seeing parallels in your own lives, then try a little harder. Try a little harder, because they really do these things to help you. It is interesting. It's fascinating, but it also has parallels and life lessons for each of us. So confirmation bias, right? So this guy thinks, well, I've got it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up shop for myself. And I'm going to show the world. And that's the way he said it. He said, I'm going to show the world, not my community, not France or Italy or wherever he's at. I'm going to show the world. This is the kind of ego this guy had. So he tries to set up his own shop. But here's the thing. He's not in a place. He's in a small, even if he's in France, he's in a small, relatively small city or town. He gets blacklisted. Nobody will sell him art supplies. I'm not kidding you. The man can't buy art supplies, and he has no money. He was kicked out with the clothes on his back. Now his art has been taken from him. Now, what does that mean? He's in the rut that his soul created. He's in the rut. And he doesn't know how to get out, because all he's ever known is the rut. Is this brilliance, this brilliant artistic work that he could do. So he kind of cast about. This is what they're showing me. He cast about and he found some work because he was industrious. He was a worker. He could work, but he found some work and this is why. Okay, because they woke me up this morning saying Da Vinci was a bricklayer. And I'm like, well, I got to know more about this. Let me pour a cup of coffee. So he found some work in some sort of bricklaying, building kind of thing. Well, of course, he caught the attention of the craftsman because he laid the brick with a flair, and he had a natural ability to do so. Because remember, Da Vinci was also sort of an architect, engineer type person, a sculptor. He wasn't just a painter. He was all of these things. So you would think, okay, he's going to reinvent himself. He's finally out of the rut that he created with painting. He's going to reinvent himself. He did to a degree. He was known in that field. He became known. He became known as a very good craftsman, but he never claimed the role of the genius that he thought. He thought, okay, I'll reinvent myself. So this is what he's thinking. I have to give up the art. It's, again, he had to get out of the rut. Now he's on no path. Might as well be a jungle, right? There's no path. He has to create a new path. Anybody that's trying to recreate themselves right now, who's unhappy in their job, unhappy in their career, their life, their marriage, their relationship, or has retired, this is also for you. So here he is in the jungle. He has to make a new path. He goes back to his soul, whatever, he's like, well, I think I can do this. I'll take my creativity and I'll use bricks. Now, that's kind of mind-blowing. It's not for us because we understand that this man had a life, hundreds of years ago as a sculptor. But he doesn't know that. He has no idea. He just knows that he's creative, that he has this draw, this urge to create. And he has a visual eye. He can see things. He can see the brick that's out of line with all the other bricks. He can see that if you turn the bricks 60 degrees, it would make a neat design. So then he started trying to convince these construction people, his bosses, let me make this design. Well, what did he run up against? Cost. No, we don't. Our client paid for a brick wall, and they're getting a brick wall. They're not going to get all this fancy stuff. We don't care if you're fancy. We need somebody to lay bricks. Aha. So now he's got his first, he hit his own first wall. He's trying to create the path in the jungle, and he just came across the raging river. He just came across something that he has to figure out a way around, or will he? So when we have these things in our life, do we find a way around? Do we just pull out the camp chair and sit at the edge of the river and just watch it? Do we let that be the end of how we're going to progress? And there's no judgment here because life is hard. Our lives are freaking hard. So there's no judgment here. But I would say this, Spirit allows you to pull up a chair, sit on a log, grab a seat in the dirt, whatever, and watch that river. They'll let you do that. But then there comes a drought and the river dries up and you're able to walk across it. Then what do? That's the test. Do you sit there because you're like, oh, I'm pretty comfortable now. I know all these trees. I know all this stuff. It feels really comfortable to me and I don't need to go anywhere, even though you can go somewhere. So you've lost touch with your soul light, with your soul plan, because you got comfortable waiting for this obstacle. So in Da Vinci's situation, what he did was he kept pushing this boss. And what he ended up doing was, and this belies his ego once again, he waited for the person who was buying the brick wall, who was buying the building. And he said, I've got this picture. He can paint, he can draw. I've got this picture for this arched window. And by my estimation, it's really only going to cost you this much more money. And I can do it. Can I show you? So Da Vinci goes over and grabs some bricks and builds the window from the ground just to show this guy with no scaffolding, no mortar. He literally fits the brick. It's quite the feat. They're showing me it's almost like magic. People are walking up and saying, how did he do that? It sort of reminds me of when people stack rocks and they get the rocks to stay completely balanced. This is what he did. He used the leverage. Remember, he's also an engineer all those 100 years ago. He used the leverage of the bricks to create the arch. Well, of course, what happened is the client said, absolutely, I want that, and I want it at that price. His ego got in the way. Now he's going to his boss and saying, well, I got you some extra business, but you got to do it at this price. Now the boss is saying, theoretically, I could do it at that price, but that's not the value of the window. That's the value of perhaps your time and the value perhaps of that brick, of those materials. But that's a curved, beautiful window. And the value of that window is triple what you quoted this gentleman. And I don't like what you're doing. I don't like you going around me. You're causing me trouble. I want to just build brick walls. It's quick. I can make a lot more money. If I start doing, fancy things, then it makes less money, slows everything down. And there's some more details that I have to have somebody go back and double check. And what if it falls? What is my liability? So guess what? Da Vinci's out of a job. He's still in the wilderness. He's still wandering around trying to figure out his path. Now, the problem here is when he was designing his soul life architect, whatever they just said earlier, when he was designing that, had he had faith that he could reinvent himself, he really could have had a much easier life. He chose a little different option, so his lessons are a little bit harder, but he's tenacious. He's not about to let this slow him down because he's had a life and several lives as a brilliant, well-respected, maybe even revered artist. This energy is locked, baked into his soul. So he feels it. He's like, I feel like I can do this. I feel like this is me. I feel like this is who I'm supposed to be, but why can't I do it? Why can't I get traction? So if you're in your life and you feel like, I know I'm a writer, I know that I could start a business, I know in every fiber of my being that I can do this, fill in the blank, and you didn't do it because life handed you different cards, or you played the cards differently, or whatever happened, it's because you've had many lifetimes doing that thing. Now, what I find is that towards the latter half of our life, that's when that can kick in. So oftentimes when they want us to do something different and get out of our confirmation bias, get out of the confirmation bias that you're going to be a multimillionaire. You just know you're going to be a multimillionaire. You know you're going to win the lottery. You know you're going to be a major movie producer because you feel it. You're like, I can't describe it. I've stopped talking to people about it because people look at me like, come on, Susan, get over it. But I know, I have this feeling and knowing, I know it's true. So what would be good for you to know is, how can I take that feeling and manifest it in some way that does work? Instead of sitting by the river, even though it's dried up because life has just beat you down and you've decided, forget this, man, I'm just going to wait this sucker out. I'm going to wait it out and spin the wheel and try again, right? Instead of that, take several steps back from that river, because that's a trap. The fact that you've been stuck there, wherever you're stuck in your life, it's a trap. You're not likely to be able to have the energy all of a sudden to jump up out of your chair and run across the river given the chance. So some do. Very few people, but some do. But more than likely, you're ensconced, you're tired, you've given up. You've given up is what's happened. So what would be a good thing to do would be to move yourself. That could either be a lot of different things. Well, to be able to move yourself, you really need to start very small. There's nothing that's going to happen with a big jump. It's oftentimes just too hard to do that. So start small. And I mean, micro small. If you feel stuck, if you feel like I don't know what's going on, but I just feel stuck and I feel unhappy. And here's the rub. I shouldn't feel unhappy. I've got a house. I've got a family. Why am I so unhappy? Oh my God, that makes it worse. It makes it worse. Truly, it makes it worse because then you feel like something's wrong with you, that you're not grateful for everything you have. And then you double down on those things, trying to prove to yourself that you should be grateful for it. The truth of the matter is, those things aren't making you happy. Yes, be grateful for those things, but also understand that there could be more. I could want more. I could get more. And I'm worth more. I'm worth getting more. I'm worth being happier. That seems to be the big block. So what I would do is take some steps back and start doing little things in your life to just shake up your life. It could be something so simple as taking a different route to the grocery store, taking a different route on your walk, taking a different route to wherever it is that you drive to. Literally go out of your way. Drive 5 minutes out of your way. It really does scramble your neurons. And it makes you start choosing things. What it does is you're not on autopilot anymore. You guys, if we're doing the same thing every day, we're on autopilot. And then 10 years goes by or 50 years goes by. That's autopilot. That's sitting at the river waiting for it to go dry, and it goes dry and you don't walk across it because you're on autopilot of waiting at the river. So switch it up. Make your brain work harder. Take different steps, do different things, start a new hobby, listen to different music, go out and get new friends. I'm not kidding you. Just strike up a conversation with somebody that you don't normally talk to and just let them talk because you want different. You want to hear about them. Go to a cultural experience. Go to a different restaurant every Friday and get to know the people that work there and ask them about themselves. Where did you come from? Were you born here? Were you born somewhere else? Where'd you get these recipes? What spices do you use? What are you doing? You're opening up all the windows in your house and airing it out. Your house is your brain, by the way. You're airing out your brain. You're bringing in new stimulus. That's going to help you with the confirmation bias. That's going to help you get unstuck. And then you do what Da Vinci did, and you go and you say, let me try this soul energy that I have so strong in my soul. Let me apply it over here. Let me apply it over there. Let me apply it over there. If spirit or your parents decided you were supposed to be an accountant or an attorney or a doctor or whatever, or a tradesperson, and you hate it, think about just completely reinventing yourself. Read books on reinventing yourself. Read books on how people reinvented themselves. Read memoirs on how people reinvented themselves. Read success stories. You know what you're doing? You're preparing your energy for something new, for something different, for something bold, and for something that better matches your soul light. And again, this is why I say a lot of times this happens in the latter part of our lives, because in the first part of our lives, well, we're about work. We're about making the money and paying the bills and having the family or whatever it is, getting the trade, learning the profession, climbing the ladder, all those things. Society is a pretty strong motivator for us. And society, whether you know it or not, society basically, through all the people that you know, the people you meet, they ask you, what do you do for a living? Don't they? Where do you live? Do you have a family? Everybody asks you that question. So when people ask you that question all the time, especially when you're 15 through 30, where are you going to go to school? What are you going to do for a living? You understand this is important. I better start doing this. I better start having these things. You comply. Confirmation bias. The society says, do these things. Be normal. Be like us. So you do. Trying to make everybody happy. Trying to get them off your case. So when they ask you, you can say, I'm an accountant. Oh, that's great. I always wanted to be an accountant. How do you love it? And you're thinking to yourself, I freaking hate it, right? So if you're not happy, do these things. Be like Da Vinci. Da Vinci could have said, I'm going to brick the best walls you ever seen in your life. My walls are going to be perfect. He couldn't do it. He couldn't make himself do it. He literally had to make a freaking oval window where there wasn't even a window. We're not even talking about he made a square window and an oval window. There wasn't even a window there. This guy was building like tenement buildings or like, what do you call those? Manufacturing places where there was no windows. It was terrible. I mean, it was terrible design. It was an anathema to Da Vinci. Da Vinci was like, this is hell on earth right here, right? So what did he do? Well, he got fired from his job. So he picked himself up. He took his drawings and he went to an architect, an actual engineering architect, and he became a draftsperson for that architect. Now, I want you to see a pattern here. What did he do when he was younger? Was he was a draftsperson for an artist. The artist that was the patron, that had the following, that had the money, used his drawings, took them, and claimed them as his own. So then he got out of the rut. He got into the jungle. He got to the river. He was blocked by the guy he wanted to do the windows for. So he went to work for an architect as a draftsman. What is he doing? Drawing pretty things that the architect can then sell to people. He's not the architect. He's the draftsman. And you know, he made peace with that. He made peace with that. Because he realized I'm going to say he made peace with it. You have to understand this man's ego, but he made peace with it because he needed to pay his bills. This guy respected his work. He got some public recognition for his work. This architect gave him public recognition, brought him up to a high level, sort of like a high level draftsman, not an architect, but as high as he could get without being an architect. And he couldn't be an architect because he needed to have more schooling, but he needed some sort of patronage. He needed somebody to patron him so that he could do that. Everything was very structured. So even though in our society it's structured by schooling, and that society was structured by who you know and schooling and money and all of those things. So he kind of gave up a little bit, but he got some of the things he wanted. His soul light was happy because he was creating. He was doing a service, which he thought was for mankind. He wanted to do a service for mankind. So when he would walk his community and he saw a cathedral, he felt good that he did that. So that replenished his soul light. The fact that the architect gave him credit replenished his soul light. Yes, he wanted to be the architect. He wanted to be Da Vinci. He never got there in that life. But he found a way to honor his soul light, to find his place in the pecking order of the energy, and to realize if he loved himself, if he sought glory and fame and didn't get it, then he wouldn't love himself. He had to find the love in here, not out there. He had to realize that this architect is nice to me. I make very good money and I'm respected. That was important to him. I'm respected. Not top dog, but I'm respected. And when I walk through my community, I see what I've done with my own eyes. I see the craftsmen building the designs that I know I helped with. So his soul learned a lot of lessons, right? His soul learned a lot of lessons that he can love himself without being the top dog. That he was tenacious, that he didn't give up when he was blocked. that he went around the obstacle. He followed his soul. It was a completely different career too, because in the beginning he was painting. And then he ends up a bricklayer, and then he ends up an architect's draftsperson. Confirmation bias. He had to give up the fact that he was a painter. He had to give up the fact that he was going to be a famous painter. He had to give that up. Then he had to recreate himself in a different medium as a lowly bricklayer just to make money to eat. Then his brilliance shone through once again, and he created that beautiful window only to get thrown out on his keister. He had to reinvent himself again. So where in your life are you having to reinvent yourself? Where are you getting a wall? And what is your soul trying to tell you it wants to do? And this is not the most obvious thing. It might have been for Da Vinci because his soul, because he had created a rut. He had really created so many lifetimes doing that work and getting that glory. And he could have chosen a different route to have that change in his soul trajectory, but he didn't. So he did it a different way. But in your life, what is your soul light? What is your soul's purpose? And I know you're thinking, Susan, if I knew that, I wouldn't be watching this video. I'd probably be doing something that I really love doing. That's kind of true, but also a little bit rude. But anyway, so, let's help you find it. You can get an Akashic Records reading. I don't do them. I mean, I do whatever the spirit guides. I don't do any of this stuff. I'm a vessel. If they show me one of your past lives, that's what I see. If they show me your soul path, that's what I see. If you ask me a question and they don't want to show it to me, I got nothing. But there are people that do Akashic Records readings. But I want you to understand that confirmation bias. Don't think your soul light or your soul path is to be an astronaut. Therefore, I was never an astronaut. Therefore, I'm a loser. Break it down. What does an astronaut do? Explore. You're an explorer. Okay, well, maybe you could be a tour guide at the pyramids. Maybe you could lead tour guides all around the world. That's exploration. It's not being an astronaut, but it's the same energy. Do you understand? Break it down. If you're an accountant, God bless you, accountants. I love you. I really do. I value your work. However, for some reason, they want to use this analogy. But I would also say from my own experience that attorneys, dentists, doctors, people that have to spend a lot of money on their schooling sometimes end up not loving what they do. And it's very hard because you spent a lot of money, you have a lot of student loans. It's very hard to move on from that, right? So it's a trap. These things can be a trap. That's why it's really important to get clear about your soul light. So if you're doing a career that you don't like, but you have to do it because it's paying your bills, okay? How can you make that better? So instead of reinventing yourself and walking away from the career, you can make that career better. Oh, I know you guys are saying, Susan, I work in a shite hole and there's nothing that can make this place better. You do not know what I'm talking about. Okay, I don't, but the spirit guides do. Here's how you make it better. Create a life outside of your work. We have, especially since the 80s, the guides are saying we've become worker bees. Our productivity is off the charts. Americans' productivity is off the charts. We don't have hobbies anymore. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, people had hobbies. People had parties. People took vacations. Now we're work, 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 work. And sometimes we're working 2 jobs. So even if you're working 2 jobs, take an hour out and start a hobby. It could be something as simple as going to the dollar store and getting a 5,000-piece puzzle and just putting it together. It could be as simple as going and get paint by numbers. I don't care. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. Or it could be one of the things that I'm frankly tired of talking about, because I say this to every 5th client and I'm beginning to take it personal, like maybe I need to do this. But anyway, Take a class, any class. Take a free class at the community center. Take a class you pay a lot of money for. They don't care. And they don't care what it's about. It's even better if you don't want to do it. I know that's funny. It is funny, but it's true. If you take a class with something you want to do, like you're saying, oh, Susan, I've always wanted to be a writer. I'm going to take a writing class. Do not take a writing class. Are you listening to me? Hello, stop doing the dishes. Turn around. Look over here for a second. Don't take a writing class. Don't take the class of the thing you want to do. I know she's lost her mind now. Totally. She's off the rails. I am not. You'll thank me later, I think. But anyway, if you take a class in something you want to do because you're following your soul light, in this state of mind, where you're pissed off, you're tired, you're mad that you didn't do writing all those years. Honey, why do you think it wasn't that you were not writing all those years? Why? Because you got a block? Because you don't think you're good enough. That's why. I hate to tell you, the problem is the river's dry. You're not crossing it. Remember? Don't take a class in something that you want to take a class in. Take a class in something you don't give a darn about. If you don't care about painting, take a class in painting. If you don't care about poetry, take a class in poetry. If you've never wanted to take a class in cooking Italian dishes, take a class in cooking Italian dishes. Why? Because you can laugh about it. Because you're going to walk into that class like a boss and you're going to say, I'm just taking this because somebody dared me. Make it up. Lie. My friend is paying me $50 to take this class because he didn't think I'd do it, but I'm here and I'm going to do it. And then when you do your little drawing and you're supposed to be drawing a Christmas tree or an elephant and it looks like maybe, Sasquatch, you can laugh. You can really laugh. And if you're laughing at what you're doing because it doesn't matter to you because you never wanted to be a painter. You don't like cooking. You never wanted to cook. You don't care that your pasta is burned. How do you burn pasta? Anyway, you don't care if your pasta is burned. You don't care if the whole place had to be emptied out because of smoke. You think it's hilarious. And because you think it's hilarious, well, 3 people are really pissed off at you and they're probably all Virgos. But anyway, the rest of everybody is laughing their ass off because you're laughing your ass off. And now that whole perfectionism energy is gone and everybody's having a good time. You face the fear of being wrong. You face the fear of making a mistake. You didn't look like a perfection person. You looked like a complete amateur. And you thought it was funny. You have broken the block. You've broken the block. You have now unbarred the doors. You've taken the steps across the dry river. And now you can go into that uncharted territory of your soul path. Then you can take a writing class. Every time you take yourself too seriously, take a class that you don't care about and make a complete fool of yourself. It works like a charm, I'm telling you. So that's my story. And I'm sticking to it. That's what I'm going to go with. I hope this was helpful for you. I did channel all of that stuff about Da Vinci. I know I have a lot of people that are very pragmatic, practical thinkers, and they're going to be researching Da Vinci and researching Picasso and somebody that starts with a P as a artisan or whatever I called that. Maybe that's I don't know. Cubist. I don't know. Miro? Was Miro Cubist? I don't know. Anyway, that's what I'm getting. It's not about the facts. It's about the message. It's about the story. It's about helping you. I do these videos to help you. So I believe all of the stuff that I said about Da Vinci because I can't make up a story to save my life. I'm a Virgo. I don't want to be wrong. See what they have doing to me? You see? Can you see? Listen, thanks so much for tuning into this wow video. Take really good care. Let me know in the comments what you think of this video. If you have any comments or questions or stories and experiences, I want to hear them. Please share them with everybody. We learn so much when we share with each other. Take really good care of yourselves, everybody. We'll talk soon, especially next Wednesday. Don't forget to subscribe.